The moment I saw Marcus walk into the bar with her, everything inside me shattered into a million pieces. 6 months. 6 months of promises, plans, and pillow talk, all reduced to nothing because he found someone younger, prettier, more exciting. The blonde on his arm giggled at something he said, and my stomach twisted with nausea and rage in equal measure. I shouldn't have come here. This was our place, the little speakeasy in downtown Chicago where we used to dance until closing time. But my best friend Sophie insisted that hiding at home would only make me feel worse. She was wrong. Watching Marcus parade his replacement around was infinitely more painful than crying into my ice cream alone. "Don't look at him," Sophie hissed, gripping my arm. "He's not worth it." But I couldn't help it. My eyes kept drifting back to them, watching how he touched her lower back the same way he used to touch mine, how he leaned in close to whisper in her ear. The jealousy was a living thing inside my chest, clawing to get out. Hey, if you're enjoying this story so far, I'd really appreciate it if you could hit that like button and subscribe. It helps me keep bringing you more stories like this one. That's when I noticed him, the stranger at the bar, all dark eyes and sharper jawline, watching me with an intensity that made my skin prickle with awareness. He was beautiful in a dangerous way, dressed in an expensive black suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. His dark hair was perfectly styled, and when our eyes met, something electric passed between us. He raised his glass slightly, a ghost of a smile playing at his lips. An invitation. I should have looked away. I should have been smarter. Instead, fueled by heartbreak and cheap wine, I made a decision that would change everything. I stood up, ignoring Sophie's shocked gasp, and walked straight toward the stranger. With each step, I could feel Marcus's eyes on me, could sense his confusion. Good. Let him wonder. Let him feel even a fraction of what I'd felt. The stranger set down his drink as I approached, his dark eyes never leaving mine. Up close, he was even more striking, with high cheekbones and a mouth that promised sin. There was something about him, an aura of power and danger, that should have sent me running. Instead, it drew me in like a moth to flame. "You look like you're about to do something reckless," he said, his voice low and smooth like expensive whiskey. "You have no idea," I replied, my heart hammering against my ribs. "I'm Dante," he offered, and even his name sounded dangerous. "Emma." His eyes flickered to something behind me, where I knew Marcus was watching, then back to my face. "Someone you're trying to forget? Someone I'm trying to make regret," I admitted. Dante's smile widened, revealing perfect white teeth. "Then let's give him something to regret." Before I could second-guess myself, before rational thought could intervene, I grabbed the lapels of his expensive suit and pulled him down to me. Our lips met in a kiss that stole the breath from my lungs and set every nerve ending on fire. He tasted like bourbon and danger, and when his hand came up to cup the back of my head, deepening the kiss, I forgot everything else. Forgot Marcus. Forgot the bar. Forgot my own name. The kiss was magnetic, consuming, absolutely devastating in its intensity. Dante kissed like he did everything else I would later learn, with complete control and absolute confidence. His other hand found my waist, pulling me closer until there was no space between us, and I melted into him like I'd been waiting my whole life for this moment. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, the bar had gone quiet around us. I could feel dozens of eyes on us, but I only cared about one pair. I glanced over my shoulder to find Marcus staring at us, his face pale with shock, and something that looked suspiciously like jealousy. His date looked equally stunned, her mouth hanging open in a very unflattering way. Mission accomplished. "Thank you," I whispered to Dante, suddenly feeling embarrassed about using a complete stranger for revenge. But Dante didn't look used. He looked intrigued, his dark eyes studying my face like I was a puzzle he wanted to solve. "Don't thank me yet," he murmured, his thumb brushing across my lower lip, in a gesture so intimate it made my knees weak. That was just the beginning. Before I could ask what he meant, Marcus appeared at my elbow, his face flushed with anger. "Emma, what the hell are you doing?" "Moving on," I said simply, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. "With him?" Marcus's eyes flicked to Dante with obvious disdain. "You don't even know him." I didn't need to know her either, apparently. I shot back, nodding toward his date. At least I waited until we broke up. Marcus had the decency to look ashamed, but it quickly morphed into indignation. This is ridiculous. You're making a scene. Am I? I smiled sweetly. How embarrassing for you. Dante, who had been watching this exchange with mild amusement, stepped closer. His presence was commanding, and I noticed how Marcus instinctively took a step back. There was something about Dante that screamed danger, a predatory grace that made him seem like he could snap Marcus in half without breaking a sweat. The lady said she's moving on, Dante said quietly, his voice carrying an edge that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I suggest you respect that. Marcus opened his mouth to argue, took one look at Dante's face, and thought better of it. He muttered something under his breath and retreated to his date, who was watching the whole scene with wide eyes. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I felt shaky and overwhelmed, the adrenaline starting to wear off. What had I just done? I'd kissed a complete stranger, made a scene in front of my ex, and now that stranger was looking at me like he wanted to devour me whole. You okay? Dante asked softly, his hand still resting on my waist. I don't know, I admitted. That was probably the most impulsive thing I've ever done. Sometimes impulse leads to the best things in life. He paused, then added, Can I buy you a drink? A real one, not whatever revenge-fueled courage you've been drinking. I knew I should say no. Every rational cell in my body was screaming at me to thank him politely and return to Sophie's table. But there was something about Dante that made me want to be reckless, to throw caution to the wind and see where the night took us. One drink, I agreed. Dante's smile was worth every ounce of the trouble I suspected I was getting myself into. One drink turned into 3, and 3 drinks turned into hours of conversation that flowed as smoothly as the expensive bourbon Dante kept ordering. We talked about everything and nothing, the kind of deep conversation you usually only have with someone you've known for years, not a stranger you kissed on impulse. Sophie had long since gone home, shooting me worried looks and making me promise to text her when I got back to my apartment. Marcus and his date had left too, though not before Marcus tried one more time to talk to me. Dante had simply looked at him, and Marcus had scurried away like a scolded puppy. You're very good at that, I observed, watching Dante swirl the amber liquid in his glass. At what? Making people do what you want without saying a word. Dante's lips curved into a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. It's a useful skill in my line of work. And what line of work is that? I asked, realizing I'd been talking to this man for hours and knew almost nothing concrete about him. He paused, and something flickered across his face, gone too quickly for me to identify. Business, import, export, that sort of thing. It was deliberately vague, and we both knew it, but I was too tipsy and too captivated to care. There was something intoxicating about Dante, something that went beyond his obvious physical appeal. He listened when I talked, really listened, and when he looked at me, I felt like I was the only person in the world. Tell me about the ex, Dante said, changing the subject smoothly. I groaned. Do we have to? You used me to make him jealous. I think I've earned the story. He had a point. I took a sip of my drink, gathering my thoughts. Marcus and I dated for 6 months. I thought it was serious. Turns out, I was the only one who thought that. He'd been seeing her for the last 2 months of our relationship. He's an idiot, Dante said simply. I laughed, surprised. You don't even know me. I know enough. His eyes held mine, intense and unwavering. I know you're brave enough to walk up to a stranger and kiss him in front of a bar full of people. I know you're smart, funny, and far too good for someone who couldn't see what he had. My cheeks flushed, and it wasn't from the alcohol. You barely know me, then let me know you better. It wasn't a question. Before I could respond, the bartender approached Dante, leaning in to whisper something in his ear. Dante's expression shifted, the easy charm replaced by something harder, more dangerous. He nodded once, and the bartender disappeared. I have to go, Dante said, standing and pulling out his wallet. He dropped several $100 bills on the bar, far more than our drinks had cost. Wait, that's too much. Keep it, he said to the bartender, then turned to me. Can I see you again, Emma? My heart was racing. This was crazy. I didn't know this man, didn't know anything real about him, but when he looked at me like that, like I was something precious and rare, I couldn't bring myself to say no. Yes, I whispered. Dante smiled, a real smile this time that transformed his entire face. He pulled out his phone. Give me your number. I recited it, watching as he typed it into his contacts. When he was done, he leaned down and pressed a kiss to my forehead, gentle and surprisingly tender. "I'll call you tomorrow," he promised. Then he was gone, disappearing into the Chicago night like smoke. I sat there for a long moment, touching my forehead where his lips had been, wondering what I'd just gotten myself into. The next morning, I woke up with a headache and a phone full of angry texts from Marcus. I deleted them without reading and stumbled into the kitchen, where Sophie was already waiting with coffee and a knowing look. "So," she said, pushing a mug toward me, "want to tell me about the mysterious stranger you spent the entire night with?" I wrapped my hands around the warm mug, inhaling the rich aroma. "His name is Dante. I don't know what he is, actually." But you're seeing him again?" "He said he'd call today." Sophie's expression turned serious. "Emma, I love you, but that was incredibly reckless. You don't know anything about this guy. He could be a serial killer for all you know." "He's not a serial killer," I protested, though I wasn't entirely sure how I knew that. "How do you know?" "I just do." It sounded weak even to my own ears. Sophie sighed. "Just be careful, okay? I don't want to see you get hurt again." "I won't," I promised, though I had a sinking feeling that when it came to Dante, careful wasn't really an option. True to his word, Dante called that afternoon. The sound of his voice sent butterflies erupting in my stomach, which was ridiculous considering I was a 26-year-old woman, not a teenager with her first crush. "Dinner tonight?" he asked, skipping past small talk. "I don't know. Please." The single word, spoken in that low, compelling voice, demolished my resistance. "Okay, where?" He named a restaurant I'd only read about in magazines, the kind of place that required reservations months in advance and cost more per plate than I made in a week. "Dante, I can't afford—" "You're not paying," he interrupted smoothly. "I'll pick you up at 7. He hung up before I could argue, leaving me staring at my phone and wondering if I'd completely lost my mind. I didn't go to fancy restaurants. I didn't date mysterious strangers who threw money around like it was nothing. I was practical, sensible Emma, who worked as a paralegal and lived in a studio apartment. But when 7 o'clock rolled around and Dante knocked on my door, looking devastatingly handsome in a tailored charcoal suit, all my reservations melted away. He looked at me like I was wearing a designer gown instead of the simple black dress I'd borrowed from Sophie. And when he offered me his arm, I took it without hesitation. The restaurant was everything I'd imagined and more. Soft lighting, white tablecloths, a string quartet playing in the corner. The maitre d' greeted Dante by name and led us to the best table in the house, tucked away in a private corner with a view of the city lights. "You come here often?" I asked, trying not to gape at the menu, which had no prices listed. "Occasionally." Dante's eyes sparkled with amusement. "Order whatever you want, Emma. Don't look at the prices. There are no prices." "Exactly." Dinner was perfect. The food was incredible, each course more delicious than the last. But it was the conversation that really captivated me. Dante asked about my work, my dreams, my life before Marcus. He was genuinely interested, and unlike Marcus, who had always steered conversations back to himself, Dante seemed content to listen. But every time I tried to learn more about him, he deflected with the skill of someone who'd had a lot of practice keeping secrets. "You're very mysterious," I observed over dessert. "Is that a bad thing?" "I don't know yet." Dante reached across the table, covering my hand with his. His touch sent electricity racing up my arm. "What do you want to know?" "Everything," I admitted, "but I'll settle for the basics. Where are you from? What do you do? Why are you interested in me?" He smiled at that last question. "I'm from here, Chicago born and raised. My work is complicated, and I'm interested in you because you're real. You're genuine in a world full of people playing games and wearing masks." It was a non-answer dressed up as honesty, and we both knew it. But before I could press further, a man approached our table. He was large, intimidating, with a scar running down his left cheek. He leaned down to whisper something in Dante's ear. Dante's expression darkened. He stood abruptly. "Excuse me for a moment." I watched as he followed the scarred man toward the back of the restaurant, their heads bent close in conversation. Something about the whole interaction felt wrong, dangerous. The way the man had approached, the way Dante had reacted, it all screamed of something far removed from normal business dealings. When Dante returned, his easy charm was back in place, But I'd seen the mask slip. I'd seen the cold calculation in his eyes, the hard set of his jaw. This wasn't a man who worked in import-export, at least not the legal kind. "Everything okay?" I asked carefully. "Perfect," he assured me, signaling for the check. "But I should get you home. I have an early meeting tomorrow." The drive back to my apartment was quiet. Dante's hand rested on my thigh, a warm, possessive weight that made it hard to think straight. When we pulled up outside my building, he walked me to my door like a perfect gentleman. "Thank you for tonight," I said, fumbling with my keys. Dante caught my hand, pulling me close. "Emma," he murmured, his thumb tracing my jawline. "I need you to understand something. My life is complicated. There are things about me you don't know, things that might scare you if you did." "Then tell me," I whispered. He shook his head. "Not yet. Not until I know you can handle it." He paused, searching my eyes. "But I want to keep seeing you, if you'll let me." I should have said no. Every instinct I had was telling me that Dante was dangerous, that getting involved with him was a mistake. But when he looked at me like that, like I was something precious he was afraid to break, I couldn't resist. "Yes," I breathed. Dante's smile was triumphant. He kissed me then, slow and deep and thorough, until my keys clattered to the floor and I forgot my own name. When he finally pulled away, we were both breathing hard. "Good night, Emma," he whispered against my lips. Then he was gone, leaving me trembling in my doorway, wondering what I'd just agreed to. The next few weeks passed in a blur of stolen moments and passionate kisses. Dante would appear at random times, whisking me away to art galleries, concerts, late-night dinners. He was attentive, generous, and absolutely addictive. But he was also secretive, taking phone calls in other rooms, and disappearing for days at a time without explanation. Sophie was worried. "This guy is hiding something major," she said over coffee one Sunday morning. "No one is that mysterious without a good reason." "I know," I admitted. "But Sophie, when I'm with him, I feel alive in a way I never did with Marcus. He makes me feel special." "Serial killers make their victims feel special too," Sophie muttered, but she hugged me anyway. "Just promise me you'll be careful." I promised, but careful was becoming increasingly difficult. I was falling for Dante, and falling hard. The way he looked at me, the way he touched me like I was made of glass and steel at the same time, it was intoxicating. One night, about a month into whatever we were doing, Dante picked me up in a different car, a sleek black Mercedes with tinted windows. The driver was the same scarred man from the restaurant, and he nodded respectfully at Dante in a way that made my stomach flip. "Where are we going?" I asked, as we drove through unfamiliar parts of the city. "My place," Dante said simply. "I want you to see where I live." His place turned out to be a penthouse in one of Chicago's most exclusive buildings. The elevator required a special key, and when the doors opened directly into his apartment, I had to catch my breath. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city. The furniture was modern and expensive, all clean lines and rich materials. Original artwork hung on the walls, pieces I recognized from museums. This wasn't just wealth, it was serious money. "Dante," I breathed, turning to look at him. "What do you really do?" He poured 2 glasses of wine, handing me one before answering. "I run a family business. Import, export, distribution, protection services. We have interests in various industries throughout Chicago." The way he said it, so carefully neutral, made my blood run cold. Protection services, family business. Suddenly, all the pieces clicked into place. The mysterious phone calls, the expensive lifestyle, the way people treated him with a mixture of fear and respect. "You're in the MAFIA," I said flatly. Dante didn't deny it. "My family has been in this business for 3 generations. I inherited the position when my father died 5 years ago." I set down my wine glass with shaking hands. "You're a mob boss. I prefer CEO of a multifaceted organization," he said with a small smile that didn't reach his eyes. "But yes, essentially, I should have run. I should have walked out of that penthouse and never looked back. But instead, I found myself asking, why didn't you tell me? Would you have given me a chance if I had?" "No," I admitted honestly. Dante crossed the space between us, cupping my face in his hands. "Emma, I know this is a lot to process. I know you probably want to leave right now and never see me again, but I need you to know something. Since the moment you kissed me in that bar, since the moment you looked at me like I was just a man and not a name or a reputation, I've been falling for you. You make me want to be better than what I am. You're a criminal, I whispered, but I didn't pull away from his touch. Yes, he said simply. I won't lie to you about that. But Emma, I've never hurt anyone who didn't deserve it. I protect people, our neighborhood, our businesses. I'm not a monster. How do I know that? You don't, he admitted. You have to trust your instincts. What do they tell you about me? I closed my eyes, thinking about all the times we'd been together. Dante had been nothing but gentle with me, protective even. He'd treated servers with respect, tipped generously, opened doors, listened when I talked. If he was a monster, he hid it incredibly well. My instincts say you're dangerous, I finally said, but not to me. Dante's expression softened. Never to you, he promised. I would never hurt you, Emma. I'd burn this entire city down before I let anyone hurt you. The intensity of his words should have frightened me. Instead, they made something inside me melt. I reached up, threading my fingers through his hair, and pulled him down for a kiss that tasted of wine and promises and terrible decisions. When we broke apart, Dante rested his forehead against mine. Stay, he whispered, just for tonight. Let me hold you and pretend we're normal people with normal lives. I stayed. We didn't sleep together that night, not in the way I'd expected. Instead, Dante held me on his enormous couch while we watched old movies and talked until dawn. He told me about growing up in his father's shadow, about the weight of responsibility he carried, about the loneliness of being at the top. I told him about my dreams of going to law school, about my complicated relationship with my parents, about feeling like I was always waiting for my real life to begin. As the sun rose over Chicago, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, I realized I'd made my choice. I was in this. Whatever this was, consequences be damned. What happens now? I asked, snuggled against his chest. Dante pressed a kiss to the top of my head. Now you decide if you can handle dating Chicago's most eligible criminal. That's a terrible tagline, I muttered, making him laugh. Then help me come up with a better one. I tilted my head back to look at him. How about reformed bad boy looking for his redemption? I'm not reformed, he pointed out. Not yet, I agreed. But you could be, for the right person. Dante's eyes darkened with an emotion I couldn't quite name. Are you offering to be my redemption, Emma? Maybe, I whispered. If you're offering to be mine. He kissed me then, soft and sweet and full of promise. And for the first time since Marcus had broken my heart, I felt like maybe, just maybe, everything was going to be okay. Of course, I had no idea how wrong I was. The trouble started 2 weeks later, when Marcus decided he couldn't let me go. He'd been calling and texting, which I'd been ignoring, but then he showed up at my office. Security tried to stop him, but he pushed past, making a scene in the lobby. Emma, please, he begged when I finally came down. Just talk to me. We have nothing to talk about, I said coldly, very aware of my coworkers watching. I made a mistake. I miss you. We were good together. You cheated on me, Marcus. We were never good. Is this about that guy from the bar? Emma, you're making a huge mistake. I asked around about him. Dante Moretti? He's dangerous. He's involved in things you can't even imagine. I stiffened at the use of Dante's last name. So Marcus had been investigating. My personal life is none of your business anymore. I'm trying to protect you. I don't need your protection, I snapped. I need you to leave me alone. Marcus grabbed my arm, his grip tight enough to hurt. Emma, please, let her go. The voice came from behind me, low and deadly. I turned to find Dante standing in the lobby, flanked by 2 large men in dark suits. His expression was calm, but his eyes were glacial. Marcus released my arm immediately, taking a step back. This is between me and Emma. Not anymore, Dante said quietly. He moved to my side, one hand settling possessively on my lower back. Emma has asked you to leave her alone. I suggest you listen. Or what? Marcus tried to sound brave, but his voice shook. Dante smiled, and it was the most terrifying thing I'd ever seen. Or I'll make you disappear so thoroughly. No one will ever find enough of you to fill a shoebox. Your choice. Marcus went pale. He looked at me, opened his mouth, then thought better of whatever he was going to say. He practically ran out of the building. My boss appeared, looking concerned. Miss Chen, is everything all right? Fine, I managed. Just a misunderstanding. After she left, I turned to Dante. You threatened to kill my ex-boyfriend in front of my entire office. I did, he agreed calmly. That's insane. He put his hands on you, Dante said, his voice dropping to a dangerous growl. No one puts their hands on you. Ever. Despite everything. Despite the scene he'd just caused, and the fact that he'd essentially admitted to being willing to commit murder on my behalf, I found myself melting. Because underneath the threat, underneath the danger, I could see the real emotion. Dante was scared. Scared of losing me. Scared of someone hurting me. Take me home, I said softly. Dante's expression shifted, uncertainty flickering across his features. Emma, please, just take me home. He did, and when we got to his penthouse, because somehow that had become home, I turned to face him. I need you to promise me something, I said. Anything. Promise me you'll never lie to me. I can handle the truth, whatever it is, but I can't handle lies. Dante pulled me close, his arms wrapping around me like he was afraid I might disappear. I promise. No more secrets. No more half-truths. You want to know something? You ask, and I'll tell you. Even the scary stuff? Especially the scary stuff. I believed him. Maybe I was naive, maybe I was foolish, but I believed him. Being Dante's girlfriend was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. He was attentive and generous to a fault, showering me with gifts I insisted were too expensive and experiences I'd only dreamed about. But it wasn't the money that captivated me. It was the way he looked at me, like I was the only thing in his world that truly mattered. He was also true to his promise about honesty. When I asked about his business, he answered, explaining the complex web of legitimate and not-so-legitimate operations his family controlled. It should have repulsed me. Instead, I found myself fascinated by the way his mind worked, the strategic planning that went into every decision. You'd make an excellent lawyer, I told him one night over dinner. Dante laughed. I prefer working outside the legal system, but I appreciate the compliment. I'm serious. You're brilliant, Dante. You could do anything you wanted. His expression grew thoughtful. I used to think about that before my father died. I was studying business at Northwestern, had plans to maybe go legitimate, build something new. Then he was killed. And suddenly I had a whole organization depending on me. People who needed protection. Families who needed income. I couldn't just walk away. Do you regret it? Sometimes, he admitted. But then I think about all the good I can do from this position. We run community programs, protect small businesses from bigger predators, make sure our neighborhoods stay safe. It's not all violence and crime, Emma. Some of it is actually making a difference. I reached across the table, taking his hand. I believe you. You shouldn't, he said quietly. I'm not a good man. You're better than you think you are. Dante raised my hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to my knuckles. You make me want to be better. It wasn't all romance and deep conversations, though. Dating a mob boss came with complications I'd never imagined. There were security protocols, background checks on anyone who came near me, and a detail of bodyguards that followed me everywhere. At first, it made me uncomfortable, but after a threatening letter appeared at my office, clearly from a rival organization, I started to appreciate the protection. The letter was what finally pushed me to tell Sophie everything. You're dating who? She shrieked, nearly dropping her coffee. We were in her apartment, where I'd finally worked up the courage to come clean. I showed her the letter, watched her face go pale as she read the thinly veiled threats. Emma, this is insane. You need to break up with him right now. I can't, I said simply. Can't or won't. Both. I took a deep breath. Sophie, I love him. The words hung in the air between us. It was the first time I'd said them out loud, even to myself. But they were true. Somewhere between the stolen kisses and late-night conversations, between learning about his world and letting him into mine, I'd fallen completely and irreversibly in love with Dante Moretti. Sophie stared at me for a long moment, then sighed. You're absolutely sure about this? I've never been sure about anything in my life. Then I guess I'm going to need to meet this boyfriend of yours properly. If he's going to be around, I need to make sure he's good enough for you. I laughed, imagining Dante being grilled by my 5'2" best friend. I think he'd actually like that. When I told Dante about Sophie's demand to meet him, he seemed genuinely pleased. I want to know the people who are important to you, he said. Your friend obviously cares about you. I respect that. The dinner was set for the following weekend at one of Dante's restaurants, a cozy Italian place in Little Italy that his family had owned for decades. Sophie showed up armed with a list of questions and a determination to protect me, but within an hour, even she was charmed. Dante was on his best behavior, answering her questions honestly while being respectful and attentive. He talked about his plans to expand the family's legitimate businesses, his work with local charities, his genuine affection for me. By the time dessert arrived, Sophie was actually smiling. "Okay," she admitted, after Dante excused himself to take a phone call. "I get it. He's dangerous and probably not the best choice you could make, but I understand why you love him." "I didn't say I loved him," I protested weakly. "Emma, you look at him like he hung the moon. Trust me, you love him." When Dante returned, his expression was troubled. "I'm sorry, but I need to cut this short. There's a situation that requires my attention." "Go," I said, understanding that this was part of his life. "We'll finish without you." Dante kissed me softly, thanked Sophie for coming, and disappeared with his ever-present security detail. Sophie and I finished our dessert in comfortable silence before she finally spoke. "You know this can't end well, right?" "I know," I admitted. "But I'm in it anyway." "Then I'm in it with you," she declared. "Someone needs to keep you sane." I hugged her tight, grateful beyond words for her support. The situation Dante had been called away for turned out to be serious. A rival family was making moves on their territory, and tensions were escalating. For the next week, I barely saw him. He called when he could, sent texts to let me know he was thinking of me, but he was busy handling something he couldn't talk about over the phone. I tried not to worry, tried to focus on work and my normal life, but it was impossible. Every news report about violence in the city made my heart race. Every phone call could be bad news. When Dante finally showed up at my apartment at 2 a.m, exhausted and disheveled, I nearly cried with relief. "Hey," he said softly, pulling me into his arms. "I'm sorry I've been MIA. Are you okay?" I asked, running my hands over him, checking for injuries. "I'm fine. It's handled." I didn't ask what it was or how it was handled. I didn't want to know. Instead, I just held him, feeling his heart beating steady and strong against my chest. "I was scared," I whispered. "I know. I'm sorry. Don't apologize. This is your life." I knew what I was signing up for. Dante pulled back to look at me, his dark eyes searching mine. "Did you?" Because I'm starting to think I didn't fully explain what being with me means. The danger, the uncertainty, the possibility that one day I might not come home. "Stop," I said firmly. "You don't get to push me away for my own good. I'm an adult, Dante. I make my own choices and I choose you." "Emma, I love you," I blurted out, the words escaping before I could stop them. "I love you, and I know it's probably too soon, and definitely too complicated, but I do. I love you." Dante's expression transformed, all the exhaustion and stress melting away to reveal pure joy. "Say it again," he demanded. "I love you." "Again. I love you, Dante Moretti." He kissed me then, hard and desperate and full of all the emotion we'd been dancing around for weeks. When he finally pulled back, we were both breathing hard. "I love you too," he said, his forehead resting against mine. "I've loved you since that first night, since you walked up to me like you owned the world and kissed me like it was your last act on earth. You terrify me, Emma. You make me want things I can't have, a normal life, a future that doesn't involve looking over my shoulder. You make me want to be the man you deserve." "You're already the man I deserve," I whispered, flaws and all. We didn't leave my apartment for the rest of the weekend. We talked and made love and made plans for a future that seemed impossible, but that we both wanted desperately. Dante told me about his mother, who had died when he was young, and his sister, who lived in New York and had escaped the family business by marrying a stockbroker. I told him about my dreams of law school, about maybe specializing in criminal justice reform. "You could really make a difference," Dante said thoughtfully. "Imagine, a mob boss's girlfriend working to reform the very system I operate outside of." "It would be ironic," I agreed. "It would be perfect," he corrected. "You could change things from the inside while I protect our people from the outside. We could actually make this city better." It was a beautiful dream, and for a moment, I let myself believe it was possible. 2 months into our relationship, Dante asked me to move in with him. I was spending most nights at his penthouse anyway, and the commute from my studio apartment was getting old, but moving in felt like a huge step, a commitment that went beyond just dating. Think about it, Dante said when I hesitated. No pressure. I just want to wake up with you every morning and fall asleep with you every night. How could I say no to that? Sophie helped me pack, though she had plenty of opinions about the whole situation. Just promise me you're not giving up your independence completely, she said, carefully wrapping my books. Moving in with a guy is great, but you still need your own life, your own identity. I'm not giving up anything, I assured her. I'm just adding to what I already have. Good, because the Emma I know doesn't let any man, even a ridiculously hot mob boss, define her. Moving into Dante's penthouse was surreal. My stuff looked tiny and shabby compared to his expensive furniture, but he insisted on making space for everything. He cleared out 2 closets for my clothes, designated a corner of the living room for my books, and even installed a new coffee maker because he knew I preferred a different brand than him. This is your home now, he said, wrapping his arms around me from behind as I arranged my books. I want you to feel comfortable here. I do, I said, leaning back into his embrace. It's perfect. Living together revealed new sides of Dante that I hadn't seen before. He was surprisingly domestic, cooking elaborate Italian meals that his mother had taught him as a child. He was messy, leaving clothes scattered around the bedroom and business papers on every available surface. And he was affectionate in a way that made my heart melt, stealing kisses in the kitchen and pulling me into his lap while he worked. But it also meant I saw more of his business, men in suits coming and going at all hours, hushed phone conversations in Italian, the weight of responsibility that settled on his shoulders every morning. I learned to read his moods, to know when he needed space and when he needed comfort. One night, about a month after I'd moved in, Dante came home covered in blood. I was in the kitchen making tea when he walked in, his white shirt soaked red. My scream caught in my throat as I dropped my mug, hot water splashing across the floor. It's not mine, he said quickly, raising his hands. Emma, it's not my blood. Whose is it? I whispered, backing against the counter. Someone who tried to hurt my family. His voice was flat, emotionless. I took care of it, and I knew what that meant. I wasn't naive. Dante had killed someone tonight, and he was standing in our kitchen with the evidence all over him. Go shower, I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. I'll clean this up. Dante didn't move. You're not running. Should I be? Most people would. I crossed the space between us, careful to avoid the blood, and cupped his face in my hands. I'm not most people. I'm the woman who loves you. All of you. Even the parts that scare me. Now go shower before you track blood through the entire apartment. Relief washed over his features. He kissed me hard, then disappeared into the bathroom. I heard the shower start, and stood there for a moment, processing what had just happened. I should have been horrified. I should have been packing my bags. Instead, I was cleaning up spilled tea and mentally running through our laundry to see if we had stain remover for blood. What had I become? When Dante emerged from the shower, clean and wrapped in a towel, he found me sitting on the couch with a glass of wine. He sat beside me, maintaining a careful distance. Talk to me, he said softly. Tell me what you're thinking. I'm thinking that I should be more upset than I am, I admitted. I'm thinking that I've crossed some kind of line, and I can't uncross it. And I'm thinking that despite all of that, despite knowing what you did tonight, I still love you. What does that make me? It makes you the strongest person I know, Dante said. Emma, if you want to leave, I'll understand. I'll have someone pack your things and take you wherever you want to go. But please don't stay out of obligation or fear. Only stay if you truly want to be here. I want to be here, I said without hesitation. But Dante, I need you to promise me something. I need you to promise that you'll never bring that part of your life home again. I can handle knowing about it, but I can't see it. Not like that. I promise, he said immediately. That was a mistake. I should have gone somewhere else first. Cleaned up. I wasn't thinking clearly. I set down my wine and moved closer, letting him pull me into his arms. What happened? Dante was quiet for a moment, then sighed. One of our rivals put a hit out on my sister. They thought they could use her to get to me. I had to send a message that my family is off limits. Is she okay? She's fine. She doesn't even know it happened. I made sure of it. I pressed my face against his chest, feeling his heart beating steady and strong. I hate this, I whispered. I hate that people want to hurt you, that you have to do terrible things to protect the people you love. I know. I hate it too. We sat there in silence for a long time, holding each other while the city lights twinkled outside the windows. When we finally went to bed, Dante held me close, and I felt him tremble slightly, the weight of what he'd done finally catching up to him. Thank you, he whispered into my hair. For what? For staying. For not looking at me like I'm a monster. You're not a monster, I said firmly. You're a man doing what he has to do to survive in an impossible situation. That doesn't make it right, but it doesn't make you a monster either. I felt him press a kiss to the top of my head. I don't deserve you. Probably not, I agreed, making him laugh softly. But you're stuck with me anyway. The next morning, I woke up to find Dante already gone, a note on his pillow saying he had business to attend to. I made coffee and tried to process everything that had happened. I'd known, intellectually, what Dante was capable of, but seeing the reality of it, seeing the blood, and understanding what it meant, had shaken me more than I wanted to admit. My phone rang. Sophie. Hey, I answered, trying to sound normal. You sound weird. What's wrong? I couldn't tell her. Couldn't explain what I'd seen, what I now knew with absolute certainty. So I lied. Nothing, just tired. Liar. But okay. I'll let it go for now. Lunch today? Can't. I have a meeting with my law school advisor. That, at least, was true. I'd been taking online classes, working toward my dream of law school, and Dante had been incredibly supportive. He'd even connected me with some lawyers who worked in criminal justice reform, helping me build a network. The meeting went well. My advisor was impressed with my progress and thought I had a real shot at getting into a good program. As I walked out of her office, feeling hopeful about my future, my phone buzzed with a text from Dante. Dinner tonight? I want to make it up to you for last night. I smiled despite everything. Only if you're cooking. Deal. I love you. Love you too. As I walked through the city streets, dodging tourists and business people, I realized something important. I wasn't excusing what Dante did. I wasn't pretending it was okay. But I understood why he did it. Understood the impossible choices he faced every day. And I'd made my choice to stay. To love him anyway. To try to be a force for good in his life even when he was doing bad things. Maybe that made me complicit. Maybe it made me foolish. But it made me happy. And after Marcus, after years of playing it safe and still getting hurt, maybe that was enough. 3 months after moving in together, Dante proposed. It wasn't romantic or carefully planned. We were in bed on a lazy Sunday morning, and he just asked, "Marry me," he said, propping himself up on one elbow to look down at me. I blinked, still half asleep. What? Marry me, Emma. I know it's crazy, and we've only been together a few months, but I can't imagine my life without you. I don't want to imagine it. So marry me. I should have said it was too soon. I should have asked for time to think. Instead, I said, yes. Dante's face lit up with pure joy. He kissed me breathless, then jumped out of bed and disappeared into his closet. He returned with a small velvet box, opening it to reveal a stunning diamond ring that probably cost more than my car. I've been carrying this around for weeks, he admitted, slipping it onto my finger. I was waiting for the perfect moment, but then I realized every moment with you is perfect. I looked at the ring, then at him, and burst into tears. Happy tears. Overwhelmed tears. Tears that came from realizing I was about to marry a man who terrified and exhilarated me in equal measure. Are you sure about this? I asked through my tears. Marriage to me means you're stuck with someone who's going to law school to reform the very system you work outside of. I'm counting on it, he said seriously. Emma, I want you to change the world. I want to watch you become the brilliant lawyer I know you'll be, and I want to support you every step of the way. Even if it means I might end up prosecuting people like you? Dante laughed. Especially then. You'll keep me honest. We spent the rest of the day in bed, making love and making plans. Dante wanted a big Italian wedding with hundreds of guests. I wanted something small and intimate. We compromised on medium-sized and elegant. When I called Sophie to tell her the news, she was silent for a long moment. Sophie, say something. Are you absolutely 100% sure about this? Yes, I said without hesitation. Okay then. I guess I'm your maid of honor. But Emma, promise me one thing. What? Promise me you won't lose yourself in this. You're still Emma Chen, brilliant future lawyer and my best friend. Don't let being Mrs. Moretti erase that. I promise. Planning the wedding while going to classes and dealing with Dante's increasingly complicated business situation was challenging. A new family from New York was trying to muscle in on Chicago territory, and Dante was spending long hours negotiating, threatening, and occasionally resorting to violence to protect what was his. I hated it, hated the worry and the fear, and the nights he came home exhausted and covered in bruises. But I also understood it was part of who he was, part of the package I'd agreed to when I said yes. I'm thinking of getting out, Dante said one night over dinner. I looked up in surprise. Out of what? The business. Well, not completely, but the illegal parts. I've been talking to some people, making plans. There are ways to transition everything legitimate, to build something that doesn't require violence to maintain. Dante, that would be amazing. But is it even possible? It won't be easy, he admitted. There will be people who don't want to see me go legitimate, both in my organization and outside it. But I think it's possible. And I think it's necessary, if we're going to have a real future together. I reached across the table, taking his hand. We already have a real future together. You don't have to change who you are for me. I'm not changing for you, he said softly. I'm changing because of you. You make me want to be better, Emma. You make me believe I can be. It was one of the most beautiful things anyone had ever said to me. The trouble started 2 weeks before the wedding. I was at a dress fitting with Sophie when my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Emma Chen? The voice was male, unfamiliar, with a slight accent I couldn't place. Who is this? A friend. I wanted to warn you about the man you're marrying. My blood ran cold. What are you talking about? Dante Moretti is not who you think he is. He's a killer, a criminal. The things he's done would make you sick. I know who Dante is, I said coldly, and I don't appreciate threats. This isn't a threat. It's friendly advice. Walk away now before you get hurt. The line went dead. Sophie grabbed my arm. Emma, your face is completely white. What happened? I told her about the call. She immediately wanted to call Dante, but I stopped her. No, this is exactly what they want, to scare me, to drive a wedge between us. I'm not giving them the satisfaction, but I was scared. The call had shaken me more than I wanted to admit. When I got home, Dante took one look at my face and knew something was wrong. I told him about the call, watching his expression darken with every word. It's the New York family, he said grimly. They think they can get to me through you. Can they? Not a chance in hell, he growled, pulling out his phone. I'm tripling your security detail. You don't go anywhere without protection until this is resolved. Dante, the wedding is in 2 weeks. I can't have bodyguards hovering over me while I'm walking down the aisle. Then we postpone. No, I said firmly. We're not giving them that power. We're getting married on schedule, and we're not going to live in fear. Dante cupped my face in his hands. Emma, if something happened to you because of me, I wouldn't survive it. Nothing is going to happen to me, I insisted. You won't let it. He kissed me then, fierce and desperate. You're right. I won't. I'll burn down all of New York if I have to, but I will keep you safe. The next 2 weeks were tense. Dante barely slept, coordinating security and dealing with the New York problem. I caught glimpses of the ruthless mob boss everyone feared, the man who could make people disappear with a single phone call. It should have terrified me. Instead, knowing that ruthlessness was directed at protecting me made me feel safe in a twisted way. The night before the wedding, Dante came to me with blood on his knuckles. It's done, he said simply. The New York family won't bother us again. I didn't ask what he'd done. I just cleaned his knuckles, bandaged them carefully, and held him while he finally let himself relax. Tomorrow I marry you, he whispered into my hair. Tomorrow you become Emma Moretti. Actually, I'm keeping my name, I said. Emma Chen has worked hard to get where she is, but I'll hyphenate. Chen Moretti. Dante laughed. Perfect. That's perfect. Our wedding day dawned clear and beautiful. A perfect Chicago fall day with golden sunshine and just a hint of crisp air. Despite everything, despite the threats and the violence and the very real danger that surrounded us, I'd never been happier. Sophie helped me into my dress, a simple but elegant gown that Dante had insisted on buying despite my protests about the cost. She looked beautiful in her pale blue maid of honor dress, though her expression was troubled. You can still back out, she said softly. I'll cause a scene. Blame it on me. Whatever you need. I hugged her tight. I'm exactly where I want to be. Then let's get you married to your mob boss. The ceremony was held in a beautiful old church in Little Italy, the same church where Dante's parents had married. The pews were filled with a strange mix of people, legitimate business people sitting next to known criminals, family friends alongside dangerous men who'd killed for Dante without question. But when I walked down the aisle and saw Dante waiting for me, none of that mattered. He looked devastatingly handsome in his tuxedo, but it was the expression on his face that took my breath away. He looked at me like I was everything, like I was the answer to questions he'd been asking his entire life. The ceremony was traditional, the vows simple but profound. When Dante slipped the wedding band on my finger, his hand trembled slightly, and I realized he was just as nervous as I was. I, Dante Moretti, take you, Emma Chen, to be my wife, he said, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. I promise to love you, protect you, and cherish you for all the days of my life. I promise to be worthy of the gift you've given me by choosing to love a man like me. And I promise that every day, I will try to be the man you deserve. By the time he finished, I was crying. My own vows were shorter, simpler, but no less meaningful. I, Emma Chen, take you, Dante Moretti, to be my husband. I promise to love you exactly as you are, to stand beside you through whatever comes, and to never stop believing in the good man I know you can be. When the priest pronounced us husband and wife, Dante kissed me like we were the only two people in the world. The church erupted in applause, but I barely heard it over the pounding of my own heart. The reception was held at one of Dante's restaurants, transformed into an elegant ballroom for the occasion. We danced and ate and celebrated with hundreds of people, many of whom I'd never met before. Dante's sister flew in from New York with her husband and kids, and watching him with his niece and nephew, I could see the man he might have been in a different life. You look beautiful, Marcus's voice came from behind me. I turned, shocked to find my ex-boyfriend standing there in an expensive suit, looking uncomfortable and out of place. What are you doing here? I demanded. I was invited, he said, gesturing to a table in the corner. By your husband, actually. I looked over to where Dante was talking to some business associates. He caught my eye and winked, confirming Marcus's story. Why? I asked Marcus. He wanted me to see what I lost, Marcus admitted. And he was right. Emma, you look happy. Really happy. I was an idiot to let you go. Yes, you were, I agreed. But I should thank you. If you hadn't cheated on me, I never would have kissed a stranger in a bar and found the love of my life. Marcus flinched but nodded. He's a lucky man. I'm a lucky woman. Marcus left shortly after that, and I made my way to Dante's side. He pulled me close, pressing a kiss to my temple. You invited my ex to our wedding? I asked. I wanted him to see exactly what he gave up, Dante admitted with a smirk. Petty, I know, but satisfying. I laughed, shaking my head. You're impossible. You married me anyway. Best decision I ever made. As the night wore on, and the celebration continued, Dante pulled me aside to a quiet balcony overlooking the city. The lights of Chicago spread out before us, beautiful and infinite. I have something for you, he said, pulling out an envelope. Inside was a legal document. I scanned it quickly, my lawyer-trained mind picking out the key phrases. It was a contract, transferring ownership of several legitimate businesses into my name, along with a substantial trust fund. Dante, this is too much. It's protection, he interrupted. If anything ever happens to me, you'll be taken care of. And these businesses are completely legitimate. You can run them, sell them, do whatever you want. They're yours. No strings attached. I looked at him, understanding what he wasn't saying. He was preparing for the possibility that his past might catch up with him, that one day I might wake up a widow. Nothing is going to happen to you, I said fiercely. You don't know that. Then I'll make sure of it. I'll keep you safe, the same way you keep me safe. Dante smiled, pulling me into his arms. How did I get so lucky? I ask myself the same question every day. We stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, watching the city we both loved. For the first time since I'd learned the truth about who Dante was, I felt completely at peace. This was my choice, my life, my future, and I wouldn't change a single thing. 6 months into our marriage, everything changed. Dante made good on his promise to go legitimate, slowly transitioning the family business away from illegal operations and toward legal enterprises. It wasn't easy, and there were people who resisted, But Dante was determined. I'd been accepted into Northwestern's law school, starting in the fall with a focus on criminal justice reform. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The mob boss's wife studying to reform the very system her husband had spent his life working around. But we made it work. Dante supported my studies, even when my coursework meant analyzing cases that hit uncomfortably close to home. And I supported his efforts to build something better, even when it meant long hours and difficult conversations. One afternoon, I was studying in our home office when Dante came in, his expression serious. "We need to talk," he said, and my heart sank. Nothing good ever started with those words. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong, but there's something you need to know." He sat down across from me, taking my hands in his. "The FBI has been investigating my family for years. They've never been able to make anything stick, but they're getting closer." My stomach dropped. "Are you in danger?" "Not immediate danger. But Emma, there's a possibility that charges could be filed. The transition to legitimate business helps, but there are things from my past that could come back to haunt me." "What kind of things?" Dante was quiet for a moment, then sighed. "Things I'm not proud of. Things I did to protect my family and our interests. If they can prove even half of what they suspect, I could be looking at serious prison time." I felt like I couldn't breathe. "How serious?" 20 years, maybe more. 20 years. The number echoed in my head like a death sentence. We'd barely been married 6 months, and already I was facing the possibility of losing him. "What do we do?" I asked, surprised by how steady my voice was. "We prepare. I have lawyers working on it, building our defense. And if it comes to that, if charges are filed, we fight. But Emma, I need you to understand something. If I go to prison, I won't blame you for leaving. You'd have grounds for divorce, and no one would fault you for taking it." I stood up, pulling my hands from his. "How dare you?" Dante looked startled. "What? How dare you suggest I would abandon you? I married you for better or worse, remember? That wasn't just words, Dante. That was a promise. If you go to prison, I'll visit you every week. I'll finish law school and use everything I learned to fight for your release. I'll wait however long it takes, because I love you. Do you understand me?" Dante's eyes were suspiciously bright. He stood and pulled me into his arms, holding me so tight I could barely breathe. "I don't deserve you," he whispered. "Stop saying that. You deserve happiness and love and a future, just like everyone else." We stood there for a long time, holding each other, both thinking about the uncertain future ahead of us. The FBI investigation intensified over the next few months. Agents showed up at our home, at Dante's businesses, asking questions and collecting evidence. It was stressful and frightening, but Dante remained calm, letting his lawyers handle everything. I threw myself into my studies, determined to learn everything I could that might help. My professors were impressed with my dedication, though they had no idea about my personal motivation. Then, on a cold November morning, everything came to a head. Federal agents arrived with a warrant for Dante's arrest. I watched, helpless, as they read him his rights and led him away in handcuffs. "I love you," he called over his shoulder. "Emma, I love you. I love you too," I shouted back, tears streaming down my face. "I'll fix this. I promise. I'll fix this." The next few weeks were a nightmare. Dante was denied bail, deemed a flight risk due to his connections and resources. I visited him every day the prison allowed, and every visit broke my heart a little more. He looked tired, diminished by the orange jumpsuit and the knowledge that his past had finally caught up with him. But we didn't give up. His legal team was the best money could buy, and I worked with them as much as my student status allowed, researching cases and helping build the defense. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. One of the FBI agents on the case reached out to me privately. He'd been investigating organized crime for 20 years, and he'd seen Dante's recent efforts to go legitimate. "Your husband isn't a good man," the agent said bluntly. "But he's not the monster some people think he is either. And I've seen the work he's done in the community, the businesses he's helped protect, the lives he's improved. That has to count for something." "What are you saying?" I asked carefully. "I'm saying that if Dante were willing to cooperate with us, to provide information on other criminal organizations, and testify against some of the truly dangerous people out there, we might be willing to offer a deal. Reduced charges, maybe even probation instead of prison time." I took the offer to Dante's lawyers, who took it to Dante. At first he refused. Cooperating with the FBI went against everything he'd been raised to believe. But then I visited him and begged, "Please, Dante. I know it goes against your code, but think about our future. Think about the life we could have together. You're already working to go legitimate. This is just the next step. They'll call me a rat," he said quietly. "I'll lose respect, lose my position." "You'll lose me if you go to prison for 20 years, I said bluntly, "because I love you enough to wait. But I'm not strong enough to survive that. Please, Dante, choose us." In the end, that's what convinced him. He agreed to cooperate, providing information that led to the arrest of several major criminal figures in exchange for a reduced sentence of 5 years, with the possibility of parole after 3. It wasn't perfect, but it was better than 20 years. The day of his sentencing, I held his hand in the courtroom as the judge read the terms of his deal. 5 years in a minimum security facility, credit for time served, and mandatory cooperation with federal investigations. "I'll wait for you," I whispered as they led him away. "However long it takes, I'll be here. Finish law school," he called back. "Change the world. I'll be watching." The first year was the hardest. I visited Dante every week, driving 3 hours each way to the facility where he was housed. We talked through plexiglass, sharing our lives in carefully monitored conversations. I told him about my classes, about Sophie's new boyfriend, about the businesses I was helping run in his absence. He told me about his cellmate, about the programs he was taking, about how proud he was of me. On our 2nd anniversary, I brought him a cupcake with a single candle, and we celebrated through the glass partition. It was the saddest and most beautiful moment of my life. I threw myself into school and work, determined to make Dante proud. I graduated top of my class, passed the bar exam on my first try, and landed a job at a nonprofit focused on criminal justice reform. Everything I'd promised I would do, I did. And through it all, Marcus watched from the sidelines. He'd reached out a few times, trying to apologize for his past behavior, trying to insert himself back into my life. But I had no interest. I was Mrs. Emma Chen Moretti, and I was waiting for my husband. Dante was a model prisoner. He took classes, stayed out of trouble, and continued to cooperate with federal investigations. After 2.5 years, he was granted early parole. The day he was released, I was waiting outside the prison gates. He walked out in civilian clothes, his hair a little longer, his face a little older, but his smile was the same. "Hi," he said, pulling me into his arms. "Hi," I whispered back, holding him like I'd never let go. "I heard you graduated law school. Top of my class. I heard you passed the bar. First try. I heard you've been running my businesses and turning them into a legitimate empire. Someone had to." Dante pulled back to look at me, his eyes shining with pride and love. "You're amazing. You know that? I had good motivation." He kissed me then, soft and sweet and full of promise. It was like coming home after a very long journey. "So what now?" he asked when we finally broke apart. "Now we build the life we always talked about. You run your legitimate businesses. I work on reforming the system, and we show everyone that people can change, that redemption is possible." "And Marcus?" I laughed. "Marcus who?" Dante smiled. That dangerous, devastating smile that had first captured my attention in a bar over 3 years ago. "Let's go home, Mrs. Moretti." "It's Chen Moretti," I corrected, like I always did. "My mistake, Mrs. Chen Moretti." We drove back to Chicago together, talking and laughing and planning our future. It wasn't the life I'd imagined when I'd walked into that bar heartbroken over my cheating ex-boyfriend. It was better, because I'd kissed a stranger that night, not knowing he was a mob boss, not knowing he would change my entire life, and that stranger had become my husband, my partner, my redemption, and my future. Marcus had taught me what I didn't want. Dante taught me what love really meant, and together, we were proof that even the most unlikely love stories could have happy endings. 3 months after Dante's release, we renewed our vows in a small ceremony with just Sophie and Dante's sister. It wasn't about the pageantry this time. It was about recommitting to each other, about acknowledging everything we'd survived and everything we'd become. "I, Dante Moretti, take you, Emma Chen, to be my wife," he said, tears streaming down his face. Again, still, always. "I, Emma Chen Moretti, take you, Dante Moretti, to be my husband," I replied, my own tears falling freely. For better, for worse, for richer, for poorer. through prison sentences and bar exams, forever. When we kissed, Sophie and Dante's sister applauded, and I knew that whatever came next, we'd face it together. That night, as we lay in bed in the penthouse that had become our home, Dante traced patterns on my skin and whispered, "Thank you." For what? For seeing past the monster to the man, for believing I could change, for waiting. "Thank you for being worth waiting for," I replied. We fell asleep wrapped in each other's arms, two imperfect people who'd found perfect love in the most imperfect circumstances. And Marcus? He eventually moved to New York with his blonde girlfriend, who I heard cheated on him with his best friend. I felt a twinge of sympathy when Sophie told me. But mostly I felt grateful. Grateful that his betrayal had led me to that bar, to that moment, to that kiss that changed everything. I'd kissed a hot stranger right in front of my ex. I swore I didn't know he was the new MAFIA boss, but even if I had known, even if I'd understood everything that kiss would lead to, the heartache and the danger, and the 2.5 years of prison visits, I would have done it anyway, because that kiss led me to Dante, and Dante led me to myself, to the strong, brave woman I'd always wanted to be, but never quite believed I could become. Some love stories start with a chance meeting. Some start with love at first sight. Ours started with an impulsive kiss and ended with a lifetime of devotion, and I wouldn't change a single thing. Thank you so much for reading Emma and Dante's story. If you enjoyed it, I'd love it if you could like, subscribe, and drop a comment telling me which part was your favorite. Did you like the bar scene at the beginning? The wedding? Let me know.